That 10 days on there, if they get that group of construction workers that come in and they're partiers, they're rowdy, we're getting calls on them, they can quickly get them out of there. Where if they do the reverse of what you're wanting to do, they then have to go through the eviction process, which could take 90 days.
Absolutely.
But to his point, what's going to stop me from, okay, right now I'm a short-term rental.
Changing it.
I come to the city, hey, I'm no longer short-term rental, I'm leasing this out for 6 months. Then I just got to follow all the same laws that I followed before, whether it be city ordinances or the state, you know, with the statutes that go towards the eviction process and landlord-tenant act. So I think you're all kind of getting off topic of what it is here. I recommend keep the 10 days personally.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. That's just from a law enforcement aspect. Yeah. And somebody that deals with a whole lot of evictions. If you go outside, this is like a motel. A motel can kick somebody out at any moment. Where when you get into leasing and renting,
Right.
now you got to go through the eviction process. So if you go changing that too much, I'd be afraid you'd start getting into, okay, are we no longer short-term rental? So that'd be my opinion.
With that being said, I'll go back to the 10 days.
Yeah.
Does everyone agree?
Yes.
Sounds
Okay with you? Me and Jennifer agree.
Section M, hosting of parties. Defined as how many guests you're allowed to have.
Well, if the rental's only good for 10 people, I would say I'm really not sure.
I'd say 10 people. Would that be up to the owners, you would think, or why they would even allow that?
Well, I
They may-
remember
they-
Joe saying
they-
he didn't want big college parties
They
coming
may
in.
not, they may not know it's the problem. So they could be out of town or lease their place out.
Let's keep it at 10 and then
Right.
I think, do we have any Airbnb people in here?
not here
I was going to say, my experience, and my wife cleaned some of them, most of them, the rule for their particular place is the number of guests. I'm just kind of throwing that out there because they obviously, they've got an investment they want to take care of and they don't want that party. So
I
that,
agree with that.
They'll tighten it up.
Yeah.
yeah.
I know that.
So the hosting of parties is a
10.
consensus, is defined as no more guests than the number of occupants.
Yes.
Okay, so there's,
Well, let's say the number of occupants plus, let's give it a little bit. You might want to invite grandma and grandpa
All
or
right, plus 2.
4 or 2 or 4 or.
Let's say plus 2. That way Jennifer's grandma and grandpa can come
That's
over.
right, I might want to.
do y'all have do you have a consensus on that?
Danny, Joe?
You said how many, just the number that are on the contract or plus 2? Did you
10
say?
plus 2.
No, the number of occupants plus 2.
Occupants.
Plus 2,
Yeah, plus 2. 10,
okay,
10 plus 2.
okay.
Actually, I wanted 4.
I'll meet you in the middle too.
I'm joking.
I know.
So the next, I think, section would be how you're going to enforce it.
Can we go back to P,
Sure,
fire pits, and make those according to city ordinance?
sure.
I don't know how you want to word that, but it's something to do.
I think you just take it out. You just eliminate the section because you've already got a city ordinance on fire pits.
Sounds good to me.
So just eliminate it. The next section would be 6, would be the enforcement.
Is that okay with everybody else?
No, it's good.
We just took it out, right?
No.
The LTO.
We got
On section 6 for the enforcement, we discussed last week with the mayor going in, if there's a problem, revoking license, there was discussion of an appeals board coming, or the owner could appeal it, and I suggested we come up with, they appeal it back to the city council. I'd like to have that added into this.
I don't think you want to do that. You guys don't want to have a tribunal hearing. You want to send it to the code enforcement board. By statute, that's really their job. You guys can certainly hear complaints and make changes to ordinances, but I don't think having a due process hearing would make a lot of sense for you guys. I think there could be some ramifications of that that I'm not comfortable with. The nuisance board definitely has the authority to do it. So if you cite it to the nuisance board can call a special meeting if it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, I'm sure, Sheriff, we can figure out a way to shut something down if it truly is an emergency, just out of protection of life and safety. But the code enforcement board can meet if you have a problem property and revoke or attempt to revoke a permit.
Where was the wording on that we were looking at? I can't seem to find it.
It looks like the second paragraph of section 6.0, upon the filing of a complaint.
Yeah, there was something else I used last.
This one right here. Oh, I think we were concerned about that third paragraph. That's where it looked like that people weren't getting due process. That's where we got tied up last meeting. I'm addressing that to you, Alex.
I'm sorry, the question is,
If you could look at that third paragraph and see if you think that wording needs to, I mean, how would we add in does that need to stay, and do we add in the code enforcement board process? And where do we add it?
do you all feel comfortable delegating this authority to the code enforcement board?
I do.
If they're active in meeting, I'm not sure that you said they're not,
Well,
they don't meet.
You know, as soon as we have the nuisance code done, they're gonna be, I'm sure, chomping at the bit to start. Lee, are you code enforcement?
No, unfortunately, I'm not able to.
Okay, so whoever's the code enforcement officer can then start the citation process and start working on it.
So what if we don't have a code enforcement officer? That's where, that's what our problem is right now, so we probably need a backup plan.
Or we have to designate de facto somebody that could be the code enforcement officer when there's not one that's full time. That's a definite decision you guys are gonna need to make.
There's someone on the fire department that has stated their interest in
So-
working on that.
So if we were to word it, if the property is subject to 2 or more substantiated civil or criminal complaints, it says the mayor or city council may revoke the approval and rescind the permit. Joe's suggestion was that we say the mayor revoke the approval, rescind the permit, and then rather than they can't come back and reapply for a year, have them come to the next city council meeting and state their case and have a backup plan there, and then it would move on.
That'd be where the code enforcement would come in.
You should refer it, if it's revoked for a reason, they can appeal it to the code enforcement board. Maybe that's the right way to handle it. So if they believe that the mayor, whether it be Mayor Patton or someone down the road says, this is a nuisance, this is a problem, then you can appeal it to the code enforcement board. The code enforcement board can have a full evidentiary hearing, and then they can issue a ruling, and their ruling will be final. Maybe that's the way to handle it. So you have checks and balances.
Right, that's what I'm looking for, some kind of check and balance. And I'm concerned that we have now had, how many code enforcement officers quit, and we don't have anybody right now, so if you run into that.
It's a tough job.
Yeah, and you don't have anybody, then are people left out there hanging without due process.
He's got a question.
Are we still stuck on the 2 violations for review? I know we haven't said that yet, but we said that last week. I have a concern with 2 being not enough, just in my opinion. I reached out, because we do short-term rentals for our football when we go to Naples every year, and there's a 6. Because literally you can walk in and just, if there's too many people, too many cars, there's two right on the one set.
Yeah.
So whether 2 violations is technically the right, too short of a number, 6 may be too many, but just something to think about.
Yeah.
2 could be easy right out of the first, one visit, you could have 2 violations, potentially. Something to talk about.
And we do have someone lined up for code enforcement, so hopefully within a week.
So do you guys like the suggestion of, you have the executive officer of the city, which would be the mayor, making a determination on an immediate basis, and then their remedy would be to appeal it to the code enforcement board? Do you like that?
I do. Todd, Danny,
They
anything?
have to have an appeal process somehow.
Yeah, the code enforcement board is going to actually have their hands full when the process starts. And they're going to be equipped to handle it. They're non-elected officials. They can do the right thing. That's their job, true public servants at that point. So if that's okay, then that'll be a remedy process.
Yeah, I'm like Adam, I'm kind of tied up with the number of substantiated criminal complaints there.
In my head, I'm thinking 4, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But Alex, question for you. So the violation itself would still have to go through code enforcement board, correct? Whatever the violation is. The pulling of the permit can happen at mayor's discretion if needed, and then be appealed as well.
You got
Is
it.
that what we're saying?
Yeah,
I'm just
so-
trying to get clarity.
So the mayor would have the authority to say you're no longer allowed to do an Airbnb, and in order to be able to determine whether or not that met the criteria of the ordinance in violation, you would then appeal that to the code enforcement board.
All right, fair.
Because a person may have a disagreement on
No, I understand.
any number of issues.
So I'd like to change that number as well. What do you guys think?
I don't think I think 2's not a good number, but 3 or 4 is a good number. I mean, this is somebody's livelihood.
Change it to 4, and we can always change it if it's too much or too little.
That's right. Change it to 4.
Next.
That's all the semi-major issues within the ordinance. Looks like you guys have reached consensus on it. Question, do you feel comfortable voting on it tonight, or do you want to?
Don't you think that it needs to go back to this being a first reading, since there's so many changes?
It's a great call. So, and I thought about that when Megan first gave it to me, and I truly believe that the ordinance itself is about regulating short term. That's really the point. That's what you describe in your ordinance. The actual details, some of the smaller issues, I think, are insignificant in the sense where I do believe that you could have a second reading tonight and do it. But if you all want to have the other council members weigh in, you have that right too. I mean, that's just, so from a legal perspective, I don't believe that it's so
I'm
substantial
not
change.
comfortable with it. We don't have a final copy. We've not even received a final copy from the last meeting when we made significant changes. I'm not ready to vote on it.
Okay.
Paula?
She's got a point. We need a hard copy.
I second that.
And I'm not trying to be difficult. I just don't feel comfortable approving something that I can't see.
Agreement's as good as the paper it's written on.
Megan just advised, she's just putting that you guys tabled it till next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you, Alex, because we had these questions before. We weren't able to be here,
I
so.
wasn't, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Next on old business agenda, I would like to move that down to a later time tonight. The code enforcement is what we're gonna do next, the code enforcement ordinance.
Mary, if there's something that I could say about that though,
Yeah.
and I want everybody to have an open mind before anybody gets mad and hits their hand on the table. We're having problems with keeping code enforcement officers, and I don't know if Daniel Ellie's gonna do it or not. But I'm gonna say something, I just want us to listen to it with an open mind. Since since JD does not have to take care of the water lines or the sewer lines anymore, since the city got rid of that, and part of JD's jobs is to driving around the city, he can record violations that he sees, in my opinion, while he's driving around, take pictures of it if he needs to, come back and report to you. There could be a form letter that is printed out that somebody, like maybe public relations or somebody, puts the person who owns the property, what the issue is, and you check the box, and that it needs to be corrected by, and it gets mailed out. And if that's done by somebody who is not an elected official, so nobody can get mad at him. But JD's actually the only one that actually is paid to drive around the whole city every day that he works. And he's probably familiar with more of the people that live in this city because of him driving around. And I would just like people to actually think about that with an open head. And also that would save whatever was in the budget, 16.5, and that way we wouldn't have to pay this guy or woman, whoever does the code enforcement, an hourly rate. Just something to think about.
Would you guys like to discuss the ordinance itself?
Yes.
The nuisance ordinance.
Oh, the new one? I didn't realize that's what we were doing tonight.
Good share.
I didn't bring it, because I thought we were making an announcement about a new law enforcement, or code enforcement person.
That's it. If we do talk about that, I need to make sure people understand that there are still farmers that live in the city limits of Crittenden that are working farms. And there's also commercial property that are having crops grown on them that they cut for hay on Violet Road and 491, they grow soybeans and corn. Even though that's commercial property, highway commercial property, they're growing crops on there. And there's 3 farmers that I know of that are in the city limits of Crittenden. So when we start talking about the livestock, you really need to think about why we're doing this. Now, I understand the harvesters, the 2 pigs, totally understand, and the subdivision. But you're talking about when people have land that they're actually grazing farm animals and livestock on. I don't think that's right.
Well, don't you think that, I can't remember, my dad was a farmer, but isn't it like an acre per cattle, an acre per horse? You have to have so much land
You can
to
always
have them
buy,
anyway.
you can always buy the feed. We have a feed store right there behind the Marathon Station.
No, for animals, Danny.
I don't remember a rule for how many animals. I know a farmer doesn't put more animals on there. That's when you get in trouble with Humane Society for cruelty to animals. But I mean, they have to be fed.
Fine.
But I know I just need to make sure everybody understands. There are farmers and are working farms in the city limits of Crittenden. And so I need to make sure everybody understands that when they start talking about livestock.
Has council
We can,
viewed this?
yeah, Dan, we can absolutely handle farming is, we can exempt farming, there's no problem with that.
Okay, I just got worried when I saw that livestock thing, because people started coming to me asking, what are we doing?
Well, I will, let me just attempt to give a little bit of a summary. One of the more controversial things, if not the most controversial thing you'll do, is adopt a true nuisance ordinance. And you have them already. They're just not uniform. So if you actually look at your code of ordinances, you'll see where you can't do this and that. But they've created a nuisance code board. They've never met. Once you start issuing citations to people, you will have people up in arms. I mean, when they're told they can no longer do something they've been doing historically for as long as they've been here, they're going to be very passionate about their cause. So please don't take this nuisance legislation loosely, in the sense where I asked for some input, and Todd and Joe gave some great suggestions just on issues like tree houses. I never would have thought of it. But then I looked at some other cities that have looked at tree houses, and there are ordinances that prohibit tree houses and say that you've got to do this. And Joe's position is, I don't want an ugly tree house in a guy's front yard taking away from the property value of everybody else. I get it. You're going to do quite a bit right? Now, remember that the code enforcement board is ultimately going to decide what velvet glove they need to wear that day. So they're going to be the ones looking at what makes sense. There is going to be somewhat of a check and balance. You can always amend your nuisance code ordinance if it's too restrictive, for example. This was simply a template that I went through, spent quite a few hours looking at, trying to figure out how to address Crittenden. It's not an urban template. It's not designed for, you know, a lot of people living on top of each other. Is it perfect? Of course not. I'm sure we'll screw it up a bunch of times. But there are things in there that definitely need to be addressed. Todd's suggestion is, what do we do about parking on the grass? Is it a big deal? You have parties. You know, how long can you park a car on the grass? Those are legitimate questions that you all need to field. And then when you work your way through the other ones, but there are no nuisance codes that are 100 pages. So we've pared this down, at least I should say, I pared it down to get to a point where I think we're really trying to just take away the trash from people just dumping stuff in their front yard, not painting their buildings, you know, whatever comes up. And I've looked at a different way of drafting the ordinance that talks about giving broad discretion to the board to determine what really is unsightly, what's unsanitary, what doesn't make sense. At some point, we've got to give a little bit of that control to the board to allow them to hopefully make the right decisions. They are not going to be friendly towards the board, especially in this small community. You start putting fines on people, they're going to be ticked. The numbers at the end, too, the ordinance, I know that the mayor and I talked about it briefly. By no means do I think you have to have a $100 per day violation or a maximum of up to $10,000. You don't put $10 on it, you can put $1, whatever. Just remember, if it doesn't have any teeth, it really doesn't have any bite. And that's the only fear that I do have, is that if you don't have a big enough number, a person's going to say, fine me, $100, I could care less. Get it from me when I die. So give that some thought as you work through this ordinance, and really, poor Wanda was pulling her hair out when we were working on it, because she just didn't have anything to work with. This will give anybody the tool to get the job done.
So keep sending you messages about when we have like concerns, like what tall grass is.
I took every one of your concerns and I've addressed it, looked at an ordinance to try to figure out how to actually work towards it. Parking on, you know, in grass, for example. And I tried to refine it to get the best ordinance we can, being very, you know, tolerant of the fact that this is a community that straddles so many people. You've got a little bit of density here, you've got some commercial, you've got industrial, you definitely have farmers. So you have to recognize it's a very unique community. It's not a bedroom community like Edgewood or Fort Wright, that everybody's the same. So we're trying to work on really just the junk that people, you know, the condition of their homes.
Would it be possible for you to send us the corrections you've made with the suggestions? And then we could work from that going forward?
I've got some suggestions just on the language, and you guys can look at it, and we can address it next week.
Alex, what did you come up with on the tall grass, like the ornamental tall grass?
Well, it's a tricky one, right?
Well, I mean,
One person's definition of ornament is different from the others. It's going to be really the discretion of the board if they believe it's truly ornamental, designed for landscaping, or just neglect.
but I mean the ornamental grass that you buy that's like 8 foot
Yeah,
tall.
that's what I mean, whether it's really ornamental or just neglect.
So, council, vote to table this until next meeting? Until you-
I wasn't.
I make a motion to table, or second it.
I'll second it, I'll third it. Danny,
Yes.
Todd,
Yeah.
Paula, yes. Jennifer?
Are we tabling? Yes.
Yes. And Joe is absent and Earlene is absent.
Has council had time to review the curfew draft?
Do you have some questions for the sheriff on that when the time comes, Your Honor? Our mayor? Okay, we've got, the contract is we have one sheriff's deputy in the city limits of Crittenden, 3 shifts, 3 8-hour shifts. In case they're taking somebody to jail and they're out of the Crittenden. If there's an emergency, they're out of Crittenden. Okay, I've picked up juveniles before. So what are you all gonna do when you pick up little Johnny Ray, and his mom and dad are not the most upstanding people, and they're not answering the phone, and you guys can't give them a ticket and tell them, don't do this again? You have to babysit that little Ray until mom or dad or a family member comes and signs for him.
Correct.
What's that gonna limit you on patrolling Crittenden? You can't patrol Crittenden with him in the back seat.
It's same as it would in any other jurisdiction that has,
Where are y'all gonna take,
Manpower we
where are
have.
y'all gonna take him? Or take him or her?
well, as of right now, it would either be the state police post or our office. In this instance up here, might not be a bad idea to go to the state police post. You're still, 3-4 minutes up the road. But we'll just have to address that on a case-by-case basis. And it would be dependent upon, who's coming to get them, where they coming from, where do they live. It's a case-by-case variable.
I've babysitted for many hours.
Yep.
So
Now, it don't happen a lot, but
You would drop them off at the state post, or you would have to?
no,
stay at
somebody
the
would have to stay with them. Yep. Now, best case scenario, we have enough guys out and a supervisor could maybe sit with them, but, that's not gonna happen all the time. Weekends, it's probably not gonna happen.
If you can't reach anybody, can't you take them to the Covington Juvenile or Newport Juvenile?
No.
Hardest thing you'll ever do is get a juvenile lodge.
Is that something we could use one as constables for?
I mean, I'm not gonna speak for any constable and what they are willing to do or not do. But they're gonna have to follow the same standards we are, so.
The ordinance itself, anything else from council?
I'm sorry, I didn't review it. I didn't realize that, I don't know what I was thinking.
So you're making a motion to table this?
No,
When did we get a copy of that? I don't have it in my stuff.
when we got the nuisance. When we got the nuisance. I left it at the house.
Does
All right,
anybody in
we'll
Grant
table.
County have a, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Sheriff, does anybody else in Grant County have a curfew ordinance?
I'm not sure about the other two cities. Did Dry Ridge ever? I don't think so. And Williamstown, I know Dry Ridge didn't. Williamstown, I couldn't tell you because they have their own police, so we've never really addressed anything there.
And on paper, I'm gonna let you know, it sounds great, absolutely. Juveniles out, his mom, absolutely, but I know you're all gonna be babysitting for a long period of time.
And I've always said an ordinance is just, it's kind of like a security blanket. It looks good, it sounds great, but your ones doing the mischief are the ones hiding in the bushes, walking behind the houses. So
And they're gonna
chances
know
are
that
they're
the
not gonna be
sheriff's
seen.
the sheriff's deputies have Ray, and now they're going on to,
But it's something else you can pin on them, I guess, Because the ones you're gonna be charging for violating are the ones that are gonna be damaging cars, breaking into homes. They're gonna have more than just this ordinance to worry about. I don't think the first time little Johnny, and I think I've told you all this before, is walking home from Billy's house from playing video games. I don't think we should charge him with this first time. We educate, let the parents know, hey, here he is, we picked him up, this is the ordinance. In the future, you're gonna need to go get him and bring him home. And that's my experience with that ordinance being here in the past. That's generally what we have done.
so Grant County did have one before?
No, Crittenden, you know, we've always been told, I've never actually seen or charged for it, but what the times were, and I think it was 11:30.
Still 1 in the morning.
Well, that's on Fridays and Saturdays, yeah. But I think it was 11 or 11:30, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, on Sunday through Thursday. So if anybody was in violation of that, generally we just took them home and said, hey, are you aware Crittenden has this? Mom and Dad were usually like, oh no, we didn't know that. So,
But there was just no penalty, right?
correct,
That's the problem.
correct, yeah.
I mean,
that-
that, what worse can you do? Transport service for them and parents are, thanks for bringing them home.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's a difference too between Johnny walking home from so-and-so's house or them standing around on the street corner, probably.
Correct, yeah, yeah.
So, I'm okay with Johnny walking home at 3 in the morning. It's the one standing around trying to come up with what can we do to who next. So it's the loitering that's, I think, the true issue.
Okay. Council, is there other things of old business you want to add? Is there something?
Yes, I would like to just, if we moved on to the next, are we already?
Yeah.
We need it. I would just like to bring up in the minutes, we voted last time on sending the letter to the AG's office. And I did touch base with Pete this week and asked him if he sent that letter, and he said that he did not. So I'm just wondering what the status of that is. And I gave copies of it to everybody.
Well, I'm kind of curious about why it wasn't sent since we voted to send it. Like when we say we're gonna do something, we need to do it.
Did you vote to send it? Because I wasn't in that meeting.
You weren't here.
So Alex, did he reach out to you about it, or,
He did.
okay?
Is it this August 16th letter?
That letter, yeah, that Pete sent, and he said that they required him to have a vote of council, and so that's why we voted on it at that September 3rd meeting. I thought that was my understanding of it. Just to clear up, you know, any misunderstanding.
Okay. Council wants to send a letter, you want to make a motion to send it, or?
We already
send
have a
it?
motion and vote to send it, so it needs to be sent.
Just directing, so is it, the letter would need to be changed instead of coming from Pete Whaley. Do you guys direct me to send it? Do you want me to send it? Do you direct the clerk to send it? Who do you direct to send the letter?
How do you think it should be handled?
Is it in the minutes?
Yes, it is in the minutes.
In the minutes from September 3rd? What is it? What is this?